The following episode of Crusade for Myth Drannor is adapted from the Raiders of Galath's Roost by Skip Williams, published in Dungeon Magazine number 87. The four, nervous about their plan as the portcullis rises before them, reluctantly enter. The air in the fortress is close and poorly ventilated, light provided by continual flame spells rather than torches. They are greeted by a myriad of hallways and continue into the heart of the citadel, first stabling their horses. Surreptitiously investigating the stabling area reveals a sizable rat problem, as bare tails scatter from the light when Túrendil opens one of the doors. Seeing a cat is already undertaking the task of tormenting the rodents and not wanting to spend resources fighting a swarm of vermin, the priest continues the work of stabling their steeds. Túrendil takes note of a magnificent light brown roan stallion, far finer than the other Zhentarim horses. Curious if this horse is the same as the one marked missing with the stable hand Walter, Rilyanasse and Túrendil investigate the stables, finding only poorly slumbering stable hands who had seen better days. Túrendil, Jade, and Massul begin to stroll while Rilyanasse stoops to pet the rat-tormenting feline that had peeked out. The ranger quickly catches up with her allies as they attempt to explore the citadel unnoticed. In the hall outside the stable, the four advance to the next portion of their loose plan, strolling the perimeter of the citadel and finding themselves in the empty mess hall. Túrendil peeks in the kitchen, examining the pantries for any clues as to how to proceed, both empty as the help rests for the night. Massul finds a few locked doors, quietly trying their handles before retreating to the hallway beyond the stables. They find, behind a hatch 20 feet up the wall accessed by a ladder, a room filled with water nearly 20 feet deep. Rilyanasse suggests waking the sleeping stable hands to press them for information, as it seems entirely likely they are here against their will. The groom rises with a groan. Jade and Rilyanasse shush the servants, explaining their purpose here. The worried groom answers that he's from Misseldale, captured by the Zhents, and that he would very much like to see his family. Rill asks if he enjoys his work, and the stable hand answers reluctantly, nervous that this might be a trap, that the Zhents are harsh but fair. In an effort to ease the worries of the slaves, the ranger lowers her hood briefly, and the surprised dalesman exclaims in a harsh whisper, "Folk of the Dales!" Eager to help those who might be his saviors, the groom divulges what he knows. The citadel won't rouse for a few hours.
We know a little about what has been coming out, but we do not know so much about the citadel itself. I would truly appreciate anything you thought of import.
He knows the raiders take their horses at night through a portal in the northern wall of the stables that leads to the basement. Jade inquires as to the layout of the upper area of the citadel. The towers house guards, as do the barracks to the west below them. The leader's lodge to the east. The groom takes on an even more hushed tone, chilled by the things he's seen as he speaks a name. Túrendil keeps horrible creatures in a pit in the chapel in the basement, and they feed the dead to them, as well as sacrifices. His horrified account backing up the information they'd already received from the Zhent they'd rescued from the kobolds. He goes on to explain that they never see any prisoners or loot in the stables except for captured animals that the raiders bring back, including that roan stallion that came through not long ago. The captured man also tells in worried tones that there is a jail full of folks downstairs, but he's not sure how they arrived. The rat catcher emerges from her room to nose about the conversation as the groom continues, pointing out the smithy of the one he called Jebelek, responsible for shoeing the horses.
And what of this Jebelek?
The ranger inquires. The groom knows a little about Jebelek, explaining that the name belongs to a gnome from Zhentarim Keep who is paid to maintain the armory and smith shoes for the horses, as well as sundries for the citadel. As they talk a little more, the conversation peters out. The groom doesn't know about Walter the missing boy, unfortunately, nor can he provide a map of the citadel or much more in the way of its layout. Before you go, I have something that might be of use to you. The stable hand digs about in the hay, producing 2 potions. Túrendil brought us these because he was tired of having to heal the horses himself. Túrendil thanks the pair, promising not to leave the citadel without them before the party moves out to locate the access to the other floors and begin neutralizing the guards. Following the main corridor eastward, they discover spiral stairs leading downward, carefully guarded by a pair of Zhentarim soldiers. Casually continuing past, wishing to determine the whole layout before alerting the entire castle with a fight, Túrendil, in the lead, comes upon a spur hallway lined with doors. All are solid with iron locks, save one that has a hole covered by a leather flap at its base. A chill runs down the elf's spine as he suddenly realizes the cat back in the stables may have been a wizard's familiar, and if so, they don't have long before the whole place comes down on them. Keeping up the pretense, for the guards at the stairs had looked at them with suspicion, and going to the mess hall was the only thing that made sense, the party goes back to the dining hall. Closing the doors behind them, the party quickly huddles to plan. They come to the consensus that it would be best to start neutralizing guards in the eastern arrow slits first, since they're more spread out back there. Rilyanasse sneaks up to the corner, drawing a bead on the half-orc guard peering out of his arrow slit into the night, and takes the shot. Her arrow flies true and the Zhent slumps dead, an arrow shaft protruding from his throat. The party barely starts attempting to conceal the kill when they hear another guard from further up the passage call out. They hear footsteps approach from the north. Rill steps back around the corner and snaps off another shot. The guard that had just rounded the corner falls with a gurgling cry, her arrow buried in his chest. This does not go unnoticed. Hearing the call from the other side of the door they stand before, the party readies themselves to attack whoever or whatever comes out. Jade conceals herself around the corner while the rest prepare their weapons. Túrendil hears the familiar sound of someone donning armor from inside the room. They quickly decide to force the door rather than let their enemy prepare. Massul makes a mighty effort, but the door does not budge. Hearing the call of alarm from inside, Túrendil puts his shoulder to it and bursts the latch, revealing a well-appointed room and a woman just starting to pull on half-plate armor. Abandoning the attempt to armor herself, the woman seizes a sword and shield and cries the alarm. Rushing to silence her, Rill fires a shot at her through the doorway. Massul steps through the shattered door and brings out his lucerne hammer with a dwarvish cry. Túrendil calls for the blessing of the Seldarine and leaves the officer to Massul, reasoning that her men will soon come running. The Zhent officer steps inside Massul's reach and lashes out with both her sword and a shield bash, but the dwarf handily dodges both. Rill fires off a pair of arrows, but both thunk into her shield. Massul steps back and swings, but his hammer fouls in the door and rebounds on him. Túrendil steps in and, calling on the Seldarine's protection, lashes out with Nephilium, but she turns the blow with her shield. She similarly can't break the armored elf's defenses, but time is not on the adventurer's side and they know it. Taking more careful aim, Rilyanasse slips an arrow past the captain's guard. Taking advantage of her distraction by the shot, Túrendil deftly strikes with his sword. She staggers from the blow. Stepping back, she seizes a potion from the footlocker at the end of her bed and drinks it. As she does, the next door over opens, revealing a hulking orc. Rill snaps her bow around, an arrow finding the new foe. Realizing the danger, Massul interposes himself. Túrendil, not wishing to leave the captain behind them, steps up and presses the attack. Realizing that the danger behind has become immediate, Jade abandons her watch in the northern hall and rushes to her companion's aid. Back in her quarters, the captain continues to strike at Túrendil, still without effect. Reinforcements begin to arrive. Massul strikes at a Zhent soldier who tries to run through his guard, followed by another. With an ululating war cry, the orc in the next room steps out, frightening Jade as he brings his great axe down on Massul. Rilyanasse fires arrows at the raging orc as quickly as she can, burying a pair of shafts in the brute's chest. Massul steps back and brings his hammer down, ending the barbaric lieutenant. Disengaging around his opponent's sword, Túrendil delivers a thrust with Nephilium. Jade rushes back to intercept the guard coming up behind them, landing a glancing blow with her mace. The Citadel's captain, on her last legs and desperate, has at Túrendil, but his armor and the protection of the Seldarine hold. Rill passes Massul a potion and steps back, followed by the dwarf making room to swing his hammer, slaying one of the guards. Turning his blade, Túrendil hits the captain in the temple with Nephilium's pommel gem. She crumples like a sack of potatoes. The warpriest rushes out the door to aid his companions. He sees even more guards rushing down the corridor. Thus concludes this episode, but the adventures of the Crusade for Myth Drannor are far from over. Join us next time as the party gets into the fight of their lives, with the garrison responding to the deaths of their officers. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you for the rest of the adventure.